Nandan, moving on to Aadhaar. Aadhaar enrollments have gone very well. I think about 500 million people have enrolled already. So the next wave seems to be Aadhaar applications, people actually using Aadhaar for various benefits and so on. What are the applications that you're actually seeing on the ground that are getting traction?
Well, here again, I think we are looking at a judicious mix of public policy intervention and allowing markets to function. So basically, one is the ID platform we create, but to create the ID platform, we have an ecosystem of enrollment agencies and essentially people who have an incentive compatible approach to getting the job done, which is why we have done so well on enrollments. Now the big push is really on direct benefit transfers. Now what that does is that it creates the platform of linking a person's Aadhaar number to a bank account.
Right.
And already we have crossed about 23 million such linkages, but now with the LPG program being extended to 289 districts, we're talking about 50 million to 100 million people linking their bank accounts to Aadhaar in the next few months.
So the LPG transfers are happening right now?
Yeah,
LPG
we already
transfers?
done about 5 million, I mean, not as this the Petroleum Ministry, but they've done more than 5 million 5 million individual transactions into bank accounts.
Oh, okay.
So that creates platforms, right? So you have 400 million people with Aadhaar, you have 100 million people with bank accounts. Now, this has been used, you used government benefits to jumpstart this thing. But once you create the link between the ID and the bank account, you can then start using it for commercial payments. So example, if there's a company which has 100,000 employees, they don't need to go and collect the bank account details or they just have to send the money to their Aadhaar number. So that becomes a business to person thing. And then the next step would be person to person. So we expect that in the next few months, you'll be able to send. So I can send money to your mobile number, your Aadhaar number, all that. So suddenly now it becomes a person to person. Now once you go person to person and you have it as a bunch of APIs, then all these entrepreneurs will figure out very attractive way of embedding those payment service in their apps. So once we get the person to person going, then it becomes a market thing. So I think you have to figure out how to use public policy to drive scale and then design it in a way then that private entrepreneurship gets happens.
But talking about efficiencies, if you look at the flagship schemes, NREGA, LPG gas cylinder, PDS and so on, what kind of efficiency improvements do you think they will get out of using Aadhaar?
Well, the public estimates of fraud, duplicate in systems vary from 10 to 30%. And we are finding enough anecdotal evidence in the systems which are using Aadhaar that we get 10 to 30% improvement in productivity. And this is the important thing, that what's happening is the public efficiency benefits are paying for this program, right? So let's say, and there's a study on that by NIPF. So basically what you're saying is you're using public efficiency to create a platform, and then that platform will also have innovators building apps. So you're getting, in some sense, you're getting a platform out of your savings. So it's paid for, its ROI is all done. And now you have a platform for anyone to build apps.
So let's talk about building apps. So let's say I'm a small startup which has a great Aadhaar idea. So what kind of technology enablement will sort of Aadhaar give them to go ahead and actually build it? And do they need to navigate licenses, registrations, or can they go out and go to the web and
well, we still have a lot of work to do in simplifying that. We have an ecosystem of authentication user agencies and all that. We're trying to simplify that. We expect to have people who will offer that as a service so that we don't have to do it from our side. So we have a concept of sub-user agencies. But also we need people like Vinod, because the thing is that we now have a platform on which you can build innovations. You're going to have entrepreneurs who are going to build companies that use that technology. We have to make sure there's enough accelerators and other things, developer toolkits and developer portals to make sure people get this technology.
So you've been sort of watching the developments on Aadhaar from the United States. And in the US, you have the social security number that's been used for now decades. Although it wasn't designed to be a unique ID to be used across departments, it's turned out to become the sort of the default unique ID. And that's played a pretty important part. Credit rating systems, tax filing, whatever, everybody uses that. So how important do you think Aadhaar is to India?
I'm very bullish on Aadhaar. I'm actually, how many people here are doing a startup that has anything to do with Aadhaar? Any hands? Oh, that's encouraging. Last time I asked the question, there were no hands, so this is progress. You know, very few times do you get an opportunity this large where somebody's primed a user base of 600 million people ready to sign in. Any internet startup knows they lose most of their users just at login or registration. This task is done, but done in a secure way. So not only do you solve the initial problem, you've also solved the real identity problem, and I think as you build reputation over time on this, you can solve the trust problem. Trust is one of the bigger pieces of friction in business. All of us, every time we pay somebody money, we don't know whether they'll do what they say they'll do. Trust is a big problem. In fact, it's a big source of inefficiency, and we do all kinds of things to avoid getting duped, which means trust is a huge source of inefficiency. And I think Aadhaar removes inefficiency in the system. I, for one, am completely convinced that Aadhaar should be the basis on which people should not need to carry cash anymore. Cash can be eliminated. It's a big source of lots of problems. A large problem like terrorism can be avoided because of Aadhaar. Even building, and I have to believe the first person to build a great reputation system will be able to, it's sort of like Facebook login. And given the number of entrepreneurs, I'm sure most of you know what that is. It creates this large opportunity. Payments is an obvious opportunity, but frankly, I think it's an opportunity. The way you get on an airline should be with your Aadhaar number. The way you do banking should be your Aadhaar number. The way you deal with your cell phone company or pay bills should be an Aadhaar number-based system. I actually think the government has made one of the more powerful investments to enable an IT-enabled, low-friction economy. And so I hope next time there's 50 people raising their hands. You know, people often ask me why we started Khosla Labs. And frankly, one of the simple reasons was there was a great talent available. I told you I love talent. But they also knew the Aadhaar system, and I said there's got to be a bunch of opportunities around Aadhaar. So I would highly encourage it, and I do think it's a very big opportunity.
Great. Now then, sort of building on top of that, some 60% of Indians don't have bank accounts. And you've been working with the Finance Ministry, with the RBI, with the NPCI, pretty much all the stakeholders who deal with this, with banking. How do you get everybody a bank account?
Well, you know, first of all, one of the biggest reasons why people can't open bank accounts is they don't have a KYC. They don't have proof of identity and proof of address, which becomes an impediment to open a bank, especially if you're poor, marginalized, you know, all that. So now Aadhaar has been made a KYC. So Aadhaar is a proof of identity and a proof of address for a bank account. And as of this week, which is very fortuitous, as of Monday, the RBI has said that the electronic KYC is enough to open a bank account. And an electronic KYC essentially is a paperless instant transaction. So I go to a bank branch, authenticate myself, authorize my KYC, get my bank account and go out. So suddenly we have made the whole thing electronic, instant, paperless. And the RBI has also said that even a BC can open a bank account. So in other words, tomorrow you have a BC in a village with a micro ATM, he can open bank accounts. So suddenly you have removed friction for people to onboard onto the financial system, because Aadhaar is equal to the KYC, electronic KYC, and also you can use the same Aadhaar authentication to withdraw money. So all friction to deepening of the financial system is getting removed, and that is going to drive this. And as I said, already we have 23 million people who have linked Aadhaar numbers to bank account, but I think that will cross 100 million in the next few months. So once you hit critical mass, And then once you start person to person, I mean, when you go into a taxi and you want to pay him 500 rupees, you can just say, what's your Aadhaar number, and you can do a 500 rupee transfer from your account to his account. So then, the game changes. So that, it'll take a year or two for all this to play out, but I think we're on the right track.
One of the things he used to tell us was, we need to build a system where you can move like 100 rupees using 1 paisa, or something really, really tiny. You think that's possible?
Yeah, because today our systems are not designed for the common person, right? I mean, today an ATM transaction in India costs 12 to 16 rupees.
Right.
So if you're giving somebody 50 rupees, after which you spend 16 rupees on the transaction, then it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So you have to lower transaction cost at scale. And I think that's what we're doing. I think we want a system where a guy in a village can pay 100 rupee insurance premium into a micro ATM, and still everybody makes money on the game.
Right.
But I think I want to pick up on, I think Vinod made a brilliant point, which is about reputation systems. Essentially, our people are left out because of knowledge asymmetry. Let's say that you have 100 people who are working in the construction business.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on LinkedIn. They don't have biodatas on LinkedIn, right? So they are essentially paid the same amount of money, whether the guy has experience of 1 year or 20 years, because you don't have a system of distinguishing the guy with experience. You don't have a profile of where he got his degree from, where he learned how to weld or cut wood or whatever. So when you create a system where there's knowledge opacity of that kind, there is no incentive for that carpenter, that welder, or that driver to become better, because he's not going to get a monetization of that. The moment you can create an Aadhaar-based reputation system, which also has, let's say, LinkedIn for the people kind of thing, then if everyone is able to create a trustable history of his skills and experience, trustable, then when he goes to his next job, that guy now trusts that this guy's record is good. So instead of paying him 10,000 rupees, he'll pay 20,000 rupees. And the moment the guys figure that out, they'll all come out of this system and raise the whole thing. And that's I think it's a brilliant point, that reputation systems will drive. If you can reduce transaction costs in a society, then you solve the problem.
Let me give you just one simple example. I was talking to somebody about microfinance. And what they said to me is, if somebody's repaid 3 loans in a row reliably, almost certainly you can give them a home loan without even checking their bank account. But if you had their reputation, especially with an asset like a home, which you can't carry away, it becomes so simple and so low cost.
So I give the example of skills as a reputation history, right? Similarly, credit is what Vinod is saying.
Yeah.
Now, again, in the historical way, we think of credit as you borrow something and then you repayment and all that. But why can't you think of credit on your payment record? So suppose I have a bank account, suppose I'm getting money, and I'm withdrawing money, depositing money, keeping some money. That itself is a reflection of my credit.
Your credit.
And then that can then become the way on which I can give him a 5,000 rupee loan. So imagine if at scale, you can give millions of small loans to people. I mean, you change the game.
Absolutely.
So this is serious stuff, but it'll require phenomenal entrepreneurs because we are not going to do it. We're just providing the platform. We hope some guy will create this next generation skill database or next generation credit history or whatever.
Absolutely.
This is big stuff.
That's a great idea, guys. Some of you should run with the ball on this idea.
It's funny you mentioned that example because there's somebody doing that startup in California, but it's done the hard way because there's no Aadhaar system there. So they have to instantly decide whether to make credit because nobody wants to enter their credit card number on a cell phone with their finger. Very hard to do. So they're trying to say, can we, based on the phone's history, give you instant credit? But if you have your Aadhaar number, it just becomes so trivially easy.
Absolutely.
It's a great startup to make e-commerce transactions possible.
Okay, so on that sort of high note, let's switch topics. There's a sort of atmosphere of doom and gloom right now. The Sensex has lost 15% in the last few months, couple months. The rupee has depreciated some 20%. Seems to be depreciating very fast. What does India look like to you from an American investor point of view?
So my view is very simple. There's people who look at the world short term and people who look at the world long term. If you look at the short term, I can find 10 reasons not to invest in India. If I ask the flip question, which is where are there 500 million or a billion people I can build businesses for, where there's a reasonable percentage of educated people, reasonable democracy, reasonable culture of entrepreneurship and capitalism, there's very few places in the world. In fact, you can look at China and say it will never fit the criteria for successful private entrepreneurship by non-Chinese people. So India looks pretty attractive if you take a long-term view. I was making a point to somebody earlier. 3 years from now, very unlikely, we'll be talking about some of the problems we are talking about today. Around elections, you always see all kinds of noise. You see all kinds of changes in policy. But if I take a 10-year view, and if you're investing as a private equity investor in public markets, you have to worry about quarter to quarter. But if you're in the entrepreneurial world, I suggest don't look at anything shorter than 3 to 5 years. And 10 years is not too long to take a long-term view. There, India looks very attractive. Clearly, there's lots of problems. But I don't know of too many developing economies where corruption doesn't come up as a problem, where bureaucracy doesn't come up as a problem, where infrastructure doesn't come up as a problem. I can go on. But in almost all those places, entrepreneurs find ways around the problems. Many turn problems into an opportunity.
Yeah. If you look at the U.S. economy is sort of limping back to normalcy. It looks like it's done quite well in the last couple of weeks. But the Silicon Valley is sort of racing ahead. Lots of startups, IPOs, buzzing with activity. I was there a couple of months ago. A lot of things happening. What makes the Silicon Valley so resilient to sort of downturns? How have they sort of recession-proofed themselves? And can we do something similar, like Bangalore and Noida and Gurgaon? Can these become resilient to the depressions?
So the picture always looks rosy on the other side. Anytime there's market ups and downs, it affects IPOs and acquisitions in Silicon Valley too. But by and large, I think you're right. Silicon Valley has consistently reinvented itself. And I think the single most important reason is diversity. Diversity means if one thing doesn't work, you have the talent to do something else. And whether it's internet or mobile, which is very hot, or something new comes up, like I'm very, very bullish on what mobile health can do for economies like India. I actually think countries like India can improve the quality of healthcare compared to the US at a fraction of the price because they can skip a generation of technology. They can skip the really expensive systems and move to, I'm famous for saying 80% of what doctors do, your cell phone will be able to do within 5 years, maybe 95%, and better than doctors can do it. They're much better at diagnosis than humans can ever be.
Wow.
But Silicon Valley moves relatively easily from area to area, whether it's enterprise systems, internet, mobile, health, biotechnology, green energy, and I think it comes from diversity. That takes time to cultivate. I mean, I'd be successful in the country in one area first, and then have the culture of entrepreneurship and have that spread.